Briefly weather forecast for 3 minutes. Yeah, I pressed it, but it's not
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting Australian Indian Radio's daily Facebook Live update. And first of all, I'd like to begin today's program by wishing everyone all the very best for Krishna Janam Ashtami. All the best wishes and may Krishna Sawa his blessings upon you. This is an auspicious day today. What is the day looking like? Let's take a very quick look at the weather before we move on to the news for today. So with that weather news, here is Dilraj Kaur.
Good morning everyone. So the weather forecast for the rest of Tuesday is the maximum of 23 degree and Brisbane area is partly cloudy, wind south to southwesterly 15 to 20 km per hour, becoming light in the middle of the day. Chances of rain are 5%, fire danger is low to moderate. Sun protection is recommended from now till 2:20 p.m. UV index is predicted to reach 5, that is moderate. Thank you everyone.
Thank you very much, Dilraj. And right now, moving on, we'll take a look at some of the news that's happening around the world. But as I said before, that today is Krishna Janmashtami. So, what are the timings of Krishna Janmashtami and where, what is the as they say, the tithi and what is the right time to, perform your pujas. And now, don't forget that whenever we're talking about these times, the times that we will quote here are for India. So you'll need to, translate that timing and convert that to Australian time. So here's the date and timing of the Janmashtami for this year. So there you are, the timings of Krishna Janmashtami this year. As I said, you'll have to find corresponding times to Brisbane. Those times quoted there are for times in India. Well, the latest news that's been that has come out is about what's going to happen today, especially in Victoria. The Premier Daniel Andrews is going to be facing the parliamentary inquiry there. And what would that parliamentary inquiry look like? Let's take a very, very quick look at that. uh, you know what's going to happen there is that Daniel Andrews he's copped a barrage of hard-hitting questions about the government's botched hotel quarantine scheme on Thursday's COVID-19 press conference. I'm admitting that his own errors, but Mr. Andrew refused to clarify when he first became aware of the growing outbreaks in the hotels across Melbourne. Mistakes have been made, and I will own those errors, he said. In the terms of who made the decisions and how decisions were made and how they worked together, enough safeguards were put in place to examine. And when questioned about when it was the first time he became aware of the outbreaks in the hotel quarantine, he said that when the chief minister stood by here, as I did, and reported that the genomic sequencing data had clearly shown that at least a significant proportion of the cases would be traced back to the hotel, the hotel quarantine. And after more grilling about Mr. Andrew was advised earlier, if police and the corrections department or IDF should be involved in the overseeing of the hotel quarantine, he said he did not have the answers. There's a decision to be established. It then gets established. It's then run by multiple agencies, and beyond that, we can't be certain, we can't be sure, we can't answer many of the very important questions, he said. So, these are the questions that were being asked, and this is how it all happened. And he further said, this is exactly why we have judged Jennifer, quote, and counsel assisting, and all the others who will support to give us those answers. We are all fundamentally entitled to these answers. I will be accountable for those answers and any mistakes that were made. I am not for a moment suggesting this is what he said. Otherwise, it comes after an emergency briefing on Wednesday when Judge Jennifer, quote, made it very clear to public commentary about the hotel quarantine and how and why it was allowed. Under law, unlike a court, there is no general restrictions or prohibitions which would prevent a person from commenting. So these are the things that do happen. So, no person is prevented from commenting publicly or answering questions to which there are no answers on matters which are the 10 subjects of examination by this board of inquiry, she said. Premier Daniel Andrews and Health Minister Jenny Mikhos have been able to dodge the questions by calling for official inquiry after it was revealed that protocol breaches by security guards overseeing the hotel quarantine had led to outbreaks in Victoria. And of course, many people have commented on that. All you need to do is go on the Facebook and you'll find so much commentary. At the first hearing in July, the inquiry was told that there was evidence that many, if not all, of the state's cases could be linked to the bungled hotel scheme. But Mr. Andrews and Ms. Mikhos previously refused to answer questions from journalists and the opposition. The Premier had countlessly bold, saying the facts of the matter around hotel quarantine and the adequacy of its arrangements were not a matter for me to determine or settle, he said. Ms. Mikhos also did not appear at the media conference and refused to answer the questions from her own government colleagues at the Parliament on Tuesday. I will take the members' questions on notice. I will provide her with a written answer in accordance with the standing orders, she said multiple times to various MPs. So there you are, up to date. And of course, what's going to happen is that today they're going to be facing the parliamentary committee. So the highly anticipated inquiry was postponed until August 17 due to Melbourne's stage 4 lockdown. The three key medical and scientific witnesses were to give evidence at 10 a.m. on Thursday, but Judge Quote announced that proceedings would be delayed over the health risks of COVID-19. So we'll see, and we'll wait and see what the outcome of that is, because as we know, that the whole country has been held besieged to the outbreaks from Victoria. And definitely, someone has to be accountable. Someone has to be made accountable for the bungle that's happened. So, when you look at the numbers throughout the country today, Australia has 21,397 cases with the recovery of 12,134 and 313 deaths recorded. Now in Queensland, 1,089, 1,072 recovery and 6 deaths. Worldwide, we're very close to that 20 million mark, so it's on 19.9 million. And recovery, 12.1 million and 732K deaths. So that's a lot of deaths worldwide. Now going overseas, very quickly, a breaking news that has just come through. It was that Donald Trump had to be escorted from his briefing room while there were shots being fired outside and someone got injured. We have now been told, after we put our show together, is that he did go back inside and did resume that press conference. But here's a clipping of what happened as he starts his press conference. He's brisked away because of the shooting happening right outside White House.
And the Dow Jones are going to be, the way they're going, it looks like they're just about going to be topping records, hopefully soon. Excuse me?
So when security calls, he had to be whisked away for security reasons, and obviously he did come back after that to carry on with the press conference after all the investigations happened and whatever was happening outside. There was a man who was shot right outside the White House. We will follow that news up later on. But right now, let's look at the news yesterday that was made by our Prime Minister.
Good morning, everyone. I'm joined by the Honourable Brendan Nelson to make an important announcement about the expert panel that Brendan has taken on over this recent 6-week period, reported to me at the end of July. I will come to those matters shortly, but I just wanted to start by expressing my sincere condolences to all of the families of the 19 Australians in Victoria who have passed away because of their COVID infection. More than 300 Australians now have fallen victim to the coronavirus. This news is devastating no matter what age COVID affects people, and we just want to reaffirm again our support through every channel we can provide it. Sadly, when it comes to the fatalities that result from COVID, that reflects a situation of several weeks ago now as the virus has taken its course with these particular individuals. The work continues. We look for better news when it comes to the stabilising of cases in Victoria. I'm more hopeful of that today than I was in the course of the past week over the briefings I've received over the course of the weekend and again this morning. And of course the Premier will be on his feet again shortly in Victoria and will be updating on the situation there. There are a number of other important matters which I'm happy to address, but in the first case, if you'd allow me to address this matter that Brendan has been working on, Dr Nelson has been working on, and then we can make comment on those matters, take any questions on that, and then I'll thank Brendan for his time and allow him to get out of the cold, and then I would like to address a couple of other issues that are out there today. The Victoria Cross is the highest award that can be provided to any Australian serviceman or woman for their valour. It is a very serious award, And as Prime Minister and as a government, we have a very special responsibility to ensure that the integrity of the Victoria Cross is upheld for all of those who have been honoured by having bestowed upon them that award, and all the others that will. And so it is not done lightly that a recommendation would be made for a Victoria Cross contemporaneously, which of the 100 VCs that have been awarded to Australians, that has been the case in all of those circumstances. The service, the actions undertaken by that individual has been the subject of recommendations that have come from those who were there at the time and those commanders who made the relevant recommendations, and this was done contemporaneously. Our system, though, does provide, in exceptional circumstances, where there has been instances of maladministration or where new evidence has been brought forward, for higher awards to be considered in those circumstances. And it has certainly been the case in relation to Ordinary Seaman Teddy Sheehan that this has been a case that issues have arisen now over some time. And it is also the case that this case has been the subject of a series of reviews and panels. And the challenge that the government was faced with was that we had two findings of equal standing from two reviews, neither related to each other, that had concluded different results. And so the government was presented with conflicting evidence. Now, you don't go around handing out VCs on the basis of popularity or sentiment. Certainly in cases that involve events of many, many years ago, and in this case the 1st of December 1942. We must be careful to guard against arrogance, that we today can stand in the shoes of those of all those years ago and pretend to know that we know those events better than those who were dealing with acts of bravery that today's generation, except for those who've served, could not imagine. That said, the opportunity we have is the process we have to uphold the integrity and ensure that justice is done to these incredibly brave actions.
And I think that's a very, very good decision, and it is something that we always need to be mindful of, that, when and how these decisions are made. But of course, people have done us proud, and as the Prime Minister mentioned, that it's very hard to judge now as to what actually happened then. But there are processes that need to be followed and to go through with those kind of processes. But right now, let's go to our news in brief and go worldwide. But before we do that, first of all, we'll have to go to, of course, Melbourne and take a look at what's happening there and listen to Premier Daniel Andrews and his update.
Thanks for joining us for the daily update. There are 14,957 cumulative confirmed cases of coronavirus in Victoria. That's 322 new cases since yesterday. I'm saddened to have to report that there have been now 228 deaths due to this global pandemic in Victoria. That's an additional 19 fatalities since yesterday. Just for the purposes of clarity, there is an increase of 18 on the overall number of deaths. One death that was reported yesterday was removed from the tally due to duplication. They report very quickly, they do their level best, but from time to time we will need to adjust those numbers. That's why the tally won't quite reconcile. Of those 19 Victorians who have passed away, one male in his 50s, one female in her 60s, two males in their 70s, one male and 6 females in their 80s, and one male and 7 females in their 90s. 14 of those 19 deaths are linked to aged care outbreaks. On behalf of all Victorians, we send our best wishes, our love and support, our condolences and sympathies to the families of those 19 Victorians. This will be an incredibly difficult time for them, and I hope knowing that all Victorians are with you is a comfort, some small comfort at a very difficult time. There are 640 Victorians in hospital, 47 of those are in intensive care, and 31 of those 47 are on a ventilator. A total of 1,820,598 tests have been processed since the beginning of the year, and we received 19,213 results since yesterday. There are 2,863 cases in aggregate with an unknown source. That's an increase of 105 since yesterday's report, so another 105 of those mystery cases, which are in many respects our greatest challenge. There are 1,065 healthcare workers who are active cases, so an increase on yesterday, but around that 1,000 number, which is where we've been for a few days now. There are 1,756 active cases in aged care settings, and the total active case number is 7,869.
And so those are the numbers there coming out of Victoria. And as I mentioned, that the news today will be after the parliamentary inquiry, when the Premier and the Health Department are also facing that inquiry, and it will be interesting to see what really happens there. Now, just before we were talking about the Victoria Cross and the campaigners who were after this, they just welcome the decision and how emotional it could be for these people. Let's take a very quick look at when the news was broken.
Now we're so close. I just wish now that my mum was here to enjoy this with me, but I'm sure that she's up there with Teddy. Tears of joy they were. Yeah, tears of joy. I was walking my dog when Guy rang me about 9:30, and that was the first I knew about it. And I'll remember two dates forever now. Is the 1st of December 1942 is when Teddy's action was, and now the 10th of August 2020 is going to be a very, very special date in my mind forever. I've been fighting now for 32 years. We've had our ups and downs, but we've never given up. The motto for...
And have never given up. So, all the lobbying and the recommendation for the Victoria Cross, and that was Teddy Sean, who is the nephew of Teddy Sean, and, the emotions, as he mentioned there, that those are tears of joy. Well, right now, let's go to New South Wales and get an update on the numbers and how things are progressing there in New South Wales.
New South Wales recorded 14 cases overnight from nearly 20,000 tests, and 20,000 is a very good number for the weekend. So I really thank everybody for coming forward and getting tested. And on the Saturday we had over 30,000 people who came forward. This is exactly what we need to do to stay on top of the virus. In particular, can we ask anybody with the mildest symptoms in those parts of the community where there are known clusters to come forward for testing? Our contact tracers have done an unbelievable job in making all the connections between people who've been impacted by the virus directly, but of course there are still some unknown cases which are always a concern for us.
Of the 14 new cases reported to 8 p.m. last night, one was in a returned traveller from overseas, one was from an interstate acquired from Victoria, and one was locally acquired with no links to other cases at this point, and 11 were locally acquired and linked to known cases. 5 of the cases reported to 8 p.m. last night are linked with the Tangara School for Girls, and these cases include 4 students and a household contact of a previously confirmed case. In total, we've got 9 cases, including 6 students were now associated with the school, including 1 case previously reported. The original source of this cluster remains under investigation, and this morning we received 2 additional cases were identified linked to the school, a teacher and a student.
So those are the numbers there, and as we have now seen that those clusters from the school there as well. So, you know, as has been said, that everyone needs to act very responsibly because everyone else's life is at stake as well. And of course, livelihood, because the whole economy, everything, the country comes to a standstill. Well, a few days back, we saw what was happening in Lebanon. So amidst all that and the protests that happened there, so the Lebanese Prime Minister steps down and Hassan Diab resigned along with his cabinet following the recent anti-government protest sparked by last week the explosion in Beirut. This is what he had to say when he announced his resignation.
نحن اليوم نحتكم إلى الناس.
Now we refer to the people, to their demands that those responsible be held to account for this catastrophe that has been underway for 7 years, to their desire for real change, from a government of corruption and malice, of brokers and theft, into a country with rule of law, justice and transparency, to a country that respects its people. In front of this reality, we take a step back, to stand with the people, to fight the battle for change alongside them. We want to open the door to national salvation that Lebanese will help in making. And so, today, I declare the resignation of this government.
So, you know, very carefully chosen words there, but you know, regardless of that, the whole cabinet has resigned. Well, you know, sometimes, you know, being famous, being a very good star, being up the top there is always very good, but it also takes its toll as well. So I'm talking about Joel Edgerton, and is an amazing actor, as we know, of Australian. So Joel Edgerton speaks with ABC's Australian Story about what it means to be an actor and the toll fame takes on anyone's life. So when you look at him, especially that you know, his role in Great Gatsby and the other ones, it's just amazing.
For the King and Sir George!
And so, what I mean by that is he really does have an incredible face that lends itself to so many different characters. You know, and our face is a mask.
We're welcome here, Jane.
Joel is incredibly talented. You only have to look at that scene in The Great Gatsby.
You're crazy!
He sweeps the floor with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Daisy loved me when she married me. She loves me
No,
now.
I'm sorry, Mr. Buchanan.
She does.
No.
What I think Joel has done is made it in his own terms. He doesn't ever want to have to do things that he doesn't want to do.
Well done, Patrick. Thank you.
And I think he's created a world in which he can do that. Now, that to me is success in this industry.
What is written on a piece of paper is less important than blood.
I've got my own psychoanalytical ideas behind why actors are actors. And I'll just couch it in saying this is just my theory. I think people seek an audience because they're looking for affirmation.
So did you get a hold of your brother?
What I coveted was not so much the craft of acting, but in the early days going, I want people to show me attention.
I heard you left him.
I suspect the reason that even begins is because you feel like you're a bit unlovable and that you're looking for attention.
Joel, on your right! Joel,
But there's something about walking a red carpet or going to a film festival and being on show that fills me with incredible anxiety. The times that I've had panic attacks in my life has only been in the last 5 or 6 years, and they manifest as this sort of inability to breathe, and I was like, all right, well, that's a new thing for me.
And guys, just out ahead, please. I've known for a long time that Joel has feelings of anxiety. I think it's really brave of him to be talking about it, and especially when you're an actor who's built a career on a certain kind of solid masculinity. I've always known Joel to be a pretty private person. On those occasions when he has talked to me about anxiety,
And isn't that very powerful coming from someone like Joel? So it is very important to speak up about, you may be leading a very, very high profile, life, but deep down you might be suffering from depression, from mental health. As we know, in October is going to be Mental Health Month, and there's so many different programs that are happening there as well. So it does not spare anyone from what level you are at. You are in the end a human being, so it will affect you. Well, right now in Melbourne, they're talking about all this stage 4 and what its impact might be on economical. Some of the businesses are saying that that's it, they're closing, and not only for now, they're closing for good.
Started off when I was 23 years old. Now I'm 33, spending the most important years of my life setting up this business, into blood, sweat and tears, into everything.
A decade after opening his gym business, Steve Pace has built a mini business empire in Port Melbourne, branching out into martial arts, beauty spa and cafe. With most of his businesses closed by the strict lockdown, last week only the cafe was still doing takeaway trade.
Opening up the cafe to just to test the waters out to see how it's going to go with business-wise, and our takings were $23.50. So I took over, just 5 coffees, and we officially closed our doors. Now that all 4 businesses have come to an end, it's really hit me. It's psychologically, I can't keep on going.
Steve made his decision after doing the sum.
So you could see that pain on his face. All his life, he spent so many years, blood, sweat and tears, as he mentioned, into putting that business together. Well, right now, people are talking a lot about real estate. Okay, so, and always Australians have had a lot of trust and faith in property, and they've always invested in property and followed property with great interest. Well, when I mean interest, it's not just the bank interest, but a genuine interest in property as well. So what's going to happen to property? Let's hear first from the media perspective, what the media is saying about that. As we know, we had ST in here who does the PRD market research. So it's all based on facts and figures. As they always say, you can promise me anything, but show me the results. Show me the results and I will base my decision on results. So, we'll look at 2 reports right now. One, from the media perspective, and the media is saying that the prices are tipped to be falling soon. But when we talk to the industry experts, REA CEO, Owen, he will paint a different story. He says there is not a crash, but a boom. So let's look at these 2 reports and be the judge ourselves. First of all, we look at ABC's business report on the prediction of what property market is going to be doing in the coming days.
Melbourne's lockdown has increased fears that the housing market is heading for a COVID-19 inspired drop. Prices had been picking up after the initial hit in the first wave of the pandemic, but they're on their way down again, with Melbourne leading the way. Back in May, Commonwealth Bank considered a worst-case scenario of a 30% crash in capital city prices, but now predictions are for more of an orderly and modest retreat. Andrew Robertson reports.
Meredith McDonald and her husband Ian have their Sydney apartment on the market. They want to move to Melbourne to be near family.
By the time we move, it could be New South Wales that's in lockdown and Victoria that's open. Who knows?
Despite evidence the property market is cooling, Meredith McDonald is quietly confident they'll get their asking price.
We've had over 100 groups through in 2 weeks, so I guess that's a fair amount of interest. I guess you don't know what that will translate into at auction.
All right, well, buyers, let's have a quick chat about the property itself.
Meredith McDonald will be buoyed by this weekend's auction clearance rates, which compared favourably with the same weekend last year. Lockdown again, Melbourne did even better with 73%.
At $400,000 now.
Although with much fewer houses for sale.
The first lockdown, auctions were pulled, the market went very quiet.
This time around, auctions have held, our volumes have remained pretty strong over the first few weeks and clearance rates are strong. So you had to bid.
Nationally, capital city house prices were off just over 0.5% in July, with COVID-19 making Melbourne the biggest loser, down 1.2%.
If you compare to 2019...
So Melbourne down 1.2%, which is not a great downturn, if you say, because Melbourne was always a little bit inflated. When we look at Melbourne and Sydney, Sydney was overinflated, as we all know, and Melbourne was inflated. So, you know, when it's still holding during COVID-19, so that's a very good sign. But the newspapers and others are always predicting that there will be further reduction in price as the market adjusts. But because there are fewer properties on the market as well, they're still holding their values. But what is the industry saying? So, you know, the business speaks at REA CEO Owen Wilson about Australia's property market. So despite the challenging economic times, there appears to be no shortage of interest in residential property market. So realestate.com has been browsing increase of 61%, and realestate.com, this company is a success story. If you remember when internet first got introduced, and that time people were rushing around trying to register domain names, and half the people didn't even know what domain names meant at that time. And everyone said, oh, you got to get this name, that name. Some people just registered off-the-shelf names, and that's when realestate.com was quickly grabbed. And today it's worth, well, we'll find out from this report what its worth is today and what else is the property market doing. So let's take a quick look and report and speak to REA CEO Owen Wilson.
While Ray White is the biggest agency in the country, realestate.com is the biggest marketplace. It just revealed a 7% lift in full-year net profit to $112 million. This is despite listings being down 12% over the period. There's no shortage of interest in homes.
So there you are, 112 million in profit, not turnover.
The number of people browsing each day is up 61% compared to last year. REA CEO Owen Wilson believes this will prevent a crash. Owen Wilson, despite the tough year for real estate, your company had a much better than expected result. Can it be sustained?
Look, we were really pleased with the result for FY20 when you consider the circumstances that we had. We had the bookends of two fairly substantially negative impacts on the market. In the first quarter, residential listings were substantially down due to the hangover from the Financial Services Royal Commission and the really tight lending environment that was in then. That took a lot of the buyers out of the market because they just were struggling to get finance, which then in turn took the sellers out of the market. We're seeing a really good recovery start to mount in the third quarter. By March, listings have recovered to be positive, and then, of course, COVID hit, and we saw a substantial drop in listings in April and May. But what's really interesting is it looks like that demand just became pent up, and then as soon as the restrictions were lifted, we saw a very healthy rebound in June and July in listings.
Agents we've spoken to in inner Sydney have said that they're starting to see forced sales. Is this what you're starting to see, or are you seeing this more broadly?
It's very hard for us to track the reason why a listing is put on our site. Nonetheless, anecdotally, we are hearing stories of some vendors who are coming to market.
So there you are, the two different ways. One is a journalist speaking, and the other one is an industry expert who is down there on the floor. And words like forced sales and things, where journalists normally put things, in their own words. And once these kind of words start getting out, then we start seeing lots of things. So that many times, a lot of crimes as well. There is always, when they say, a copycat crime, meaning that the more something gets talked about, the more it starts happening. But if you look at the markets and what the market are doing, a real estate market is what I'm talking about here, it is quite different. So, the demand still very high. There have been a lot of people who have been waiting to see that, our prices will go down, people will be forced to sell and will grab some bargains. That has not been happening, and that will probably not happen either, because people have invested money and they will, unless they are absolutely forced to under some circumstances to sell, that will happen. So there you are, up to date on Australian Indian Radio's daily life update. It's quite interesting, but today is Janmashtami. We will go to Santi Kunj in Haridwar to see how things are shaping up for the celebrations. But before we do that, let's take a very quick look, and I'm also mindful of the time, which always seems to slip away, take a quick look at upcoming events. And as you know, the latest copy of Brisbane Indian Times is out and about in circulation. Pick up your copy wherever you are. And don't forget that Gopio's India Day Gala Dinner and the function has been cancelled, but we will have a virtual India Day fair right from these studios here. So on Saturday, 15th of August, join us from 9 till 12, a 3-hour jam-packed virtual India Day fair, and there'll be so many celebrities, our dignitaries from Brisbane joining us on that as well, passing on our messages, and Sweta will be in here in the studios with us, co-hosting that wonderful show on Saturday. So from 9 till 12 will be Gopio Queensland's India Day Fair virtual, the virtual presentation right from these studios here. So watch out for that. The committee made a decision last night that it was too risky to be going out, and under the current circumstances, to play it safe. We don't want to take the glamour away from it, so we will hold it here. We will show you glimpses of past years, and we'll talk to many people who are associated with India Day Fair. And also don't forget that watch out for the Story Bridge, the Victoria Bridge, and City Hall on the 14th to the 16th of August. They will be lit up in the tribe, Indian colours on this very occasion, and Gopio Queensland has always arranged for that. The bridge banner will not go up, as there will be no India Day Fair in its right, so it will be a virtual event happening from here, similar to what we did for the Girmit Divas. So, that was quite successful, but this time, the committee was holding out that maybe we could do an outdoor event, but, looking at all the things, is better safe than sorry. So I think the committee has made a very wise and very responsible decision that we will just hold the virtual event from this studio here. Well, right now, let's go to Santi Kunj Haridwar. Of course, the celebrations there will take later on today. This is from previous years, but this is how it happens in Santi Kunj Haridwar.
श्री महामंत्र एक साथ एक स्वर में सभी भाई बहन साथ साथ में बोलें। ओम भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ गजाननं भूतगणादिसेवितं कपेत्थजम्बो फलचारुभक्षणम् उमासुतं शोकविनाशकारकं नमामि विघ्नेश्वरपादपङ्कजं ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। सरस्वत्यै नमो नित्यं भद्रकाल्यै नमो नमः। वेद वेदांत वेदांग विद्यास्थानेभ्यः च मंदार मूले मदनाभिरामं बिंबाधरापो ऋतुवेणुनादं गोपगोपी जनमध्य संस्थे कृष्णं भजे गोकुलपूर्णचन्द्रं। गोविंद गोविंद हरे मुरारे, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव। गोविंद गोविंद रथांग पाणे, गोविंद दामोदर माधवेति। राधा मेरी स्वामिनी और मैं राधा को दास। जन्म जन्म मोहि दीजियो वृंदावन को वास। सदा भवानी दाहिने सन्मुख रहे गणेश। पांच देव रक्षा करें ब्रह्मा विष्णु महेश। आधार शक्ति नमः, जगत जननी नमः, सद्गुरुदेवाय नमो नमः। So the feedback.
So this is the scene there from Santi Kunj, Haridwar, which is the headquarters of Old World Gayatri Parivar, and we have a branch or a sakha here in Brisbane as well, and you can see the wonderful Mandli they are getting together, and always in a very, very organized, peaceful and a nice manner. No unnecessary anchak jhanchak type of music, but they always perform so well. Well, with that, once again, I'd like to wish everyone all the very best for Janmashtami, and don't forget that on Saturday 15th of August we will have Gaupio Queensland's India Day Fair streamed live from these studios here, a virtual event on the 10th anniversary of Gaupio Queensland's India Day Fair under the current circumstances. So once again, I'd like to leave you all with that wonderful scene from Santi Kunj, Haridwar, and wishing you all the very best. Until next time, be good and stay safe.
दो लीलाएं बड़ी प्रसिद्ध हैं दुनिया में, एक रामलीला, एक रासलीला। ये दोनों, रामलीला भगवान राम के जीवन से जुड़ी है और रासलीला भगवान श्री कृष्ण के जीवन से जुड़ी है। ये दो ही अवतार हैं जिनकी चर्चा सारी दुनिया कहती है। या तो लोग कहते हैं जय राम जी की साहब, या लोग कहते हैं जय श्री कृष्ण साहब। इनकी ही लीलाएं चलती हैं, इनका ही चरित्र चलता है, इनकी